As you might remember from last week, I have 5 super reverbs in progress, and a 6th one came in, but it only needs a new rectifier tube. So this is the 64. I'm going to do one pretty thorough video on this 64, and then on the other 4 super reverbs, I'll just show you anything of interest or any place where the approach differs from this one. So as you can see, like most of the ones I do, it's got MODs, also like F&Ts. The TADs are great, that they're very expensive here. In other parts of the world, the TADs are a very affordable option. I've got these Vishay 2-watt metal films, so 2 220s, a 1K, a 4.7K. The leads go underneath the board, no excess, but just enough mechanical hook. A little bit of silicone helps them hold in place. This is pretty much just the way they would have been built originally as far as being secured. Everything's going to be trustworthy going forward. I have tightened all the hardware on the transformers and such, and there are no remaining issues from this side of the chassis. So let's take a look inside. On this one, nothing heroic needed to be done. All the electrolytics have been changed out. So 6 22 microfarads, one 4.7 down at the other end, you'll see in a moment, and the bias network. Everything else on the board was tested and measured fine. No DC leakage. This board is clean. It's in really good shape. All the pots, after some cleaning, have come back to life. The jacks are fine. Just reflowed a little bit of solder here and there as necessary, just due to mechanical vibrations over the years. But this amp is essentially, aside from the electrolytics and some resistors in the power supply and bias supply, this amp is pretty much still stock. Here you can see the 4.7 microfarad on V5B. And here you can see tiny little blue caps. What's up with those tiny little blue caps? This is a 22 microfarad, a 10 microfarad, and a 10 microfarad. This tiny little cap, each one of these is rated for 1,000 volts. These are multi-layer ceramics. I don't remember if these are MPOs or COGs. Basically, this is as good as a ceramic cap gets. They're rated for much more voltage than is ever going to be present there. They're never going to be affected by humidity or heat or anything. They're just a rock-solid locking in of the original value. The old caps had drifted. The 20 was measuring about 16, and the two 10s were measuring 7.5 or 8 microfarad each, and they were leaking a little bit of voltage, so the tremolo was just barely there. It was very weak. This amp still doesn't have as deep a tremolo as it can have. I think it's the old LDR inside the Roach. I'm going to carefully remove this, put a new one in place, and see if the tremolo gets deeper. I've already tried different tubes in V5. I've already measured all the voltages. It's not a resistor or anything. It's not the tube. It has to be the Roach. Here on the bias trim pot, the old 27K resistor did not allow the tubes to get above about 54% idle dissipation. So there's a 15K in there now, and it has a much better range of adjustment to the pot. And they're currently sitting about 58 to 60% idle dissipation with 114 volts coming out of the wall. You can see everything in the bias circuit has been redone. So 470 ohm 2-watt, then a brand new 1N4007, a Vishay 47 microfarad 100 volt cap, and the two 100 ohm half-watt resistors. Those are some flame proofs. The old filament center tap has been removed from where it was attached to the chassis. It's been bent back over on itself and heat shrunk off, and it'll be tucked in this bundle, which I will do with my right hand after filming this. I can't retuck it with my left hand, sorry. That sounds vaguely disturbing. Here you can see some added diodes, 1N4007s on the rectifier socket. That just helps modern rectifier tubes last longer, though this one's got an older tube in it now. In the future, it may need a current production. You can see the longer ground wire from the safety ground from the AC cable coming here, going to chassis. You can see the Hakko cable gland securing everything there. And I'm not going to show it because I've shown it in so many videos, but I've got the hot going to the inmost point of the fuse, then to the switch, and the neutral is just going to the primary. And on the octal sockets, the output tube sockets, you can see the added 3-watt 470 ohm screen grid resistors because the old ones had drifted, and even though they had not failed yet, they commonly fail. They're just, you take a 1-watt carbon comp resistor and you mount it directly over the heat from the tube because the heat rises, and give it some time and they fail. And I decided not to wait until they fail to change those out. The grid stoppers, the original grid stoppers, are still fine. All the heater wiring's fine. All the connections are clean. Everything's good. I've already verified that everything is working well and sounding good, that the vibrato is still a little bit weak, as I mentioned, but I was playing it through 66 Super Reverbs speakers because I knew those speakers were good. This is the first time I'll have really had a chance to play through the speakers that came with this amp. The first thing I want to do is measure what the speaker load in that cab is, and it's measuring 17.1 ohms, and that seems crazy because it's supposed to be a 2 ohm load. So let's take a break from looking at the amp and see what's going on with that speaker cab, because 17 ohms, 17.1 ohms is not a good load for this amp. Okay, mystery solved, as this old connector is just not making a perfect connection inside itself, and as you move it, it varies a lot by about 30 ohms, so that's not particularly good. There's enough length left on the old original wire that I can replace this with one that, will look like the later Fender one with the black F cap on the back. Once these things go, there's not much you can do. The insulation begins to break down, everything corrodes over time. Sometimes they last forever, sometimes they begin to wear. This one has got some signs of wear. You can see I've got some alligator clips going into a jack, so I can test this. One of the things I need to verify, well, let me tell you about the speakers first. Let me unplug the cable, get out of the way. The top two are some CTS ceramics from 1966. This is a 65 amp, or 64, and these speakers are not original to this amp. You can tell both by the date codes, and the fact that these speakers have 8 mounting holes, and there are only 4 studs per speaker in the baffle, and there's wear signs. So these speakers used to be in some other amp which had all 8 mounting points used. And the lower 2 speakers are some Jensen ceramics. I don't know if it's 68 or 78, but they've got these screw-in terminals, and the wires in them are really just kind of loose strands that I don't trust. The solder joints on these replaced speakers up here were not done very well either. So what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to tightly twist each section of wire down here and tin them so that it's one solid chunk of wire that I can very tightly screw in after cleaning these connections, and that'll make these 4 connections much more reliable. And then I'll just reflow the solder joints on these neatly. But I have done a brief test to verify that the speakers and the reverb tank the amp came with are working, and it's good enough for that purpose. So let me let you hear it. So you can hear the vibrato is not quite as deep as we might prefer, but it's getting there. And there's a little bit of a tick to it that was not there when I first did the work. Sometimes those ticks, the amp needs to run a while before it develops. That's an easy fix to get that ticking out, and I will remove that. Overall, the amp is sounding fantastic. The noise floor might be a little bit higher than I'd like, though we're hearing it in kind of a worst case scenario here. There's a metal screen door material pretty much on the inside of this cabinet top. And when the chassis is bolted together to it, it provides some shielding. When it's out of the cabinet, it's unshielded. Right now, we are at the worst possible situation where the chassis is close to, but not touching that. Forms a big capacitor, basically, where there's an air gap between the 2 pieces of metal and it acts kind of as a noise antenna. So this is the worst possible way to judge the noise floor of the amp. It's much quieter on my bench than it was here, and it'll be much quieter when put back together, but I want to make sure that all the little things are taken care of. Anyway, I know what to do next, and I'll talk to the owner after he's seen this video, and we'll be on the same page of what to do next to make this thing really, really fantastic. Thanks for watching.